Hey guys, it is a grody nasty day. I wouldn't be surprised if the clouds opened up and it started raining, but I am here on a field trip with Hunter and Brandon. Sorry. And it is a Civil War reenactment. It gives the children a chance to check out some things about the Civil War that are really cool. It's like a living history type thing, and this is going on this weekend, you guys. So if you have time to get out here, I hope that's not backwards. And the phone number and info. You see that? All right, so wanted to let you guys know about this. I'll tell you how awesome it is, if it is awesome, and I'll get back with you.
Oh, please don't hurt me.
Oh, sorry.
Where are we?
Singularity? Well, why don't you look?
I did. Now you tell me, what are you excited about?
Well, it's Civil War reenactment.
Yeah?
There's cannons over there, and there's a barge.
Yeah?
I had a friend in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Mary, that's your name?
That's my little sister Mary. My name is Elizabeth Bell Boyd.
Hey, she's...
I go by Bell. I happen to be a Confederate spy.
What?
Oh no.
There were spies on both sides. I just happened to be a Confederate spy, and let me tell you how I came to be a Confederate spy. I was born in 1844, and shortly before my 18th birthday, the Union came through my town of Martinsburg, Virginia, which is now known as West Virginia, and they took over my house, Front Royal, and made it their base.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of people in my part of Virginia were Union supporters. My family, however, we were total Southern. Born, raised, bred Southern. Can't do North, gotta do South. My father even joined the Virginia Infantry. We were so Southern. And while I was at home hanging out with my mom and we were having a good conversation, the Union soldiers were doing their thing. They weren't bothering us too much. But one of them happened to come in and started with the most awful language, talking to my mama like she was some sort of low-life creature. I could stand it no more. I went to my daddy's gun case, got his gun, shot that man dead. Yeah, you'd think I wouldn't be standing here for that, wouldn't you? However, when it was found out that this Union soldier was talking so poorly to my mother and myself and disrespecting us and our home, they decided that I was in the right. So I had no repercussions for shooting that man dead. And I decided at that very moment, it was my goal. I was going to help the South win, however I had to. So I went upstairs into a top room, into a closet, and drilled a hole that I knew would allow me to listen and see into my downstairs dining room, which is where the Union soldiers gathered to discuss their strategies. And I would spend hours on that floor curled up with my ears and my eyes over that hole listening to everything they said. I would then go and write it all down, tuck it really safely into my granddaddy's pocket watch, and hand it to my slave Mary and have her run it across state lines to General Jackson. Do it myself. I jumped on my horse, rode through enemy lines. My sister Mary happens to be wearing the dress that I was wearing at that time, and here are the 2 bullet holes that I did not know were there until I got across.
Yikes.
Whoa.
Yeah, you can imagine hearing all of that. It was a little stressful, to say the least. I ended up getting the note across, which actually helped the Confederate side take back over Front Royal and Martinsburg, which is now West Virginia. And I ended up getting a letter personally from General Stonewall Jackson thanking me for that particular note, so to speak. One of the things that I realized was now they know me. It was easy at first because I was a teenage girl. They're not thinking anything of that. You know, what teenage girl is, you know, how harmless, right? Well, I turned 18, and in the 1800s, 18 was now a woman. So I decided that now that they knew me and they were keeping their eye on me, I had to use a different method. So I decided that I was going to make them Union soldiers like me, and like me real good. And they did. About 6 of them, 2 of which I married later. I know the irony, isn't it? I tried to convert the second one. He was having none of it, but as y'all know, the North did win, so it worked out kind of nicely for me. Anyway, I did flirt with a lot of the soldiers and used whatever I had necessary to use to get information to then pass on to General Jackson.
I can tell you survived because you're right here.
Well, I look really good for being several hundred years old. It's a acreage, so they set up little stations for first aid and miniature, surgeries until we could get them to a field hospital. And I would help out as long as they were Confederate soldiers. The Southern soldiers that would come in, I wouldn't be mean or anything, but usually, they didn't need their boots or their guns or any of that anymore. So I would just, slip that under my skirt and pass it on to one of the Confederate guys. I got caught doing that and went to jail for a second time. This time it was 5 months. The first time I went to jail was only a month, and it was like a hotel. This time I was in a jail in Washington, D.C., and it was horrendous. There were rats, there were mice, there were roaches. I wasn't wearing this. I looked more like, well, there aren't any around, but I looked very pauperly, and I did not grow up that way. So that was really hard for me. I ended up getting sick. And my father ended up getting sick around the same time, and they sent him home, so they allowed me to go back home. Fatal mistake. I went back to what I was doing as soon as I was well. And then they banished me from the North altogether, and said if they caught me back there, they would hang me. So I decided, maybe I'd press my luck just enough, and I went ahead and moved on to England. Wrote 2 plays about my exploits as being a Confederate spy, and I proceeded to become an actress and act them out. I came back to the States after the war, and in 1900, on stage, I died of a massive heart attack, and 56 years old.
Well, then why were you here?
Good listeners. What you're looking at up here is called a 4-pound Ames or a mountain howitzer. It had a very unique purpose. Not like what you see on TV and in the movies. This gun is designed to be smaller because it has a very unique feature. It can be taken apart and put on the back of horses or mules and moved up a steep mountain. That's what it's designed for, was close combat. So they would take these apart, put them on the back of 2 or 3 mules, and hand carried most of the limbers. This is the limber carries all your stuff you need to fire the gun. They wouldn't have wheels, and the men would just huff it up and carry it up the mountain. What was so neat about this is they could hide these up in the woods over there, and you couldn't see it, but they could see anybody camped out right here, so it made a very dangerous weapon. This is a lumber box. The job was to look at the chart and measure out exactly what they needed and put it in a little, how big was it, like a sackcloth? Linen bag, so it would be measured out perfectly with the charge. And then they would have what they call, one guy would walk up carrying a bag like this with the charge. Now he had a very dangerous job because every sniper over there knew that that guy in this thing here was carrying an explosive charge, so if they could shoot that, it would kill the cannon crew. So he would walk up there like this, protecting it. That was his only job, was to protect his charge. I'll walk him up there and show him how to reload it. Blank charge. I didn't bring any real cannonballs. Okay. Now a good cannon crew.
Shh, guys.
A good cannon crew can fire this 3 times in 1 minute. So, and this is what they would do is when they would first get ready to load, is they would use this to clear the vents. This is just a little brush to make sure that vent's clear. After that, he was using what they call a thumb stall. And normally you have a gentleman here, and 2 guys up front here. But today, we're taking turns doing it all. This is called a worm. If you notice, this is a very sharp points on it. It's curled. It's designed to go down the barrel, and you turn it, and you pull out any kind of debris that could be in there. Yes, sir.
What is the softball?
Oh, this?
No, the cushion.
Oh, this? We'll show you. That's a sponge. Okay, once you clean this out, that's what this comes in. Wet this, because you don't want any kind of, it goes up all the black powder and any kind of little bitty particles. Not to mention, once you fire it, there's going to be still hot embers in there. You don't want to put another charge in there with anything that's hot, because what happens when you put something hot on something that's very explosive, like gasoline?
It's gonna explode.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you do this now. And then That's the sound you want to hear. It means he's holding his thumb over there and it seals it off. So once you do this, it's a dry sponge. You run it down there to get all the water out of it because black powder does not like water. It won't fire correctly. So you do this, and then after that, the gentleman brings up the charge. He puts it in here, and then you take this. Now you notice where my thumb is? You never do this, because if you do this and you pound it and that charge goes off, guess what happens to my hand?
It blows off.
Exactly. It goes this, and I can wave bye-bye to it. Not a pretty sight. So you take this and you tap it down there. Then this is called a pick. It's pointed at the end.
When can we
They would
fire
take
it?
this and put it down there and puncture the bag so there's loose black powder. That way it ignites easier. And he has what they call a friction primer. These are exact copies of what they used during the war. All this is a little bit of black primer. It's like a match. When you pull it apart, it sends flame down into it, and that's where you get your boom at.
Kind of like a grenade. Can you do it? It's like a
Of
grenade,
course we're
yeah.
going to do it.
Kind of like when you pull the. Kind of like when you pull the.
Exactly. This is what we're shooting. This is 5 ounces of solid black powder. This is like a brick.
Like this?
Yeah.
Oh man.
He's probably gonna have to.
Can we step back?
Come to the ready. Prepare. Fire.
Wow.
That was awesome! My ears! My God!